Hey guys, Michael Merulla here. I recently introduced you to lore of Rise of the Atlanteans, which is story from my art book The Unknown World of Ida. But in the meantime, I have been working on another story and characters design. Today we move forward 1,000 years in the history of this world to the story of Empire Fall. In today's video I will tell you how I approach designs, how I create lore and what is my inspiration. Usually I do few sketches first, so I did some sketches for the illustration Death of the Emperor Rhesus. This part of my fantasy history and stories is inspired by two true events. The first inspiration came from book by Herodian. Herodianus described how 4,000 Sarmatian heavy cavalry got stuck in the mud after the spring snowmelt were defeated by 3 Roman legions. The death of the emperor itself is inspired by Livy and his description how Alexander of Epirus raided southern Italy, but thanks to heavy rains, his army was divided by flooded rivers, ambushed and killed by Italic tribes. I painted this real event years ago and you can see it now. The entire story of Empire Fall is variation on collapse of Western Roman Empire, the invasion of Huns and cataclysmic flood that changed the world. Next design was late Argive warrior. You can remember some lore from story of Belvesus and how Castor of Argos defeated Atlantean army. The aim was to design classic Greek soldier, hoplite, but in the early Middle Ages. According to lore of my unknown world, time period that drawing depicts, Argos is already shadow of its former glory, stuck in the antiquity. After years of neutrality, Argos no longer needs complex armies, unlike other nations of unknown world. However, Argos also retains its famous but outdated heavy infantry, which is still a formidable opponent. As usual, it was difficult to blend the real history and fantasy lore of my world. An early Byzantine army could be an obvious inspiration, but I wanted to keep the classic Greek hoplite look with medieval and fantasy elements. Many thanks to my friends on Instagram who are fantastic world builders, artists and overall wonderful people who helped me with this design. Next designs were Turanian Warriors. Originally created for unknown world, but I think the character design is closer to the lore of Hyborian Age created by Robert E. Howard. Like Howard's world, mine is also inspired by real events, history, legends and myths and bit of esoteric and spiritual. The main inspiration for the creation of Unknown World years ago was the theosophical theory of the origin of humanity and root races by Professor Helena Blavatsky. This theory needs to be taken with grain of salt and it doesn't quite match up with the archaeological findings, but it works great as the basis for the fantasy. Therefore, I recommend it everyone who likes to build fantasy worlds and wants to anchor their projects in history. The real Turan, or Turan, inhabited by Iranians, refers to the place in the Central Asia, and the literal translation from Persian means the land of Tur. If I elaborated on the mentioned theosophical theory with historical context, it would be much information and it would not make sense to you anyway. But it made sense to me when I was writing lore about unknown world. Therefore, the design of these figures is based on the Saracens. The term Saracen was mainly used to denote the soldiers of Eastern Mediterranean, mainly Turks and Arabs. But some part of the armor are from the later period, for example the Persian helmet with horn is from the 18th century. Turkish soldiers during crusades didn't use sabers but straight sword. It's a bit anachronistic to mix these historical periods and elements, but you know what, I draw fantasy. To be honest, I am not expert or Oriental history, so I have a little bit freehand while working on fantasy warriors like that. The last design, which I call Keshik of Tengri, playing a huge part in the Empire Fall story. This story describes how these Tangry nomads raided and destabilized Turkish Empire and created their kingdom on its ashes. As always, the goal of my design was to combine already existing warriors. The original idea was to make a mix of Huns and North American Indians, because according to lore, Tangry assimilated some Indian-looking tribes that lived around their steppe territories especially Yamna people inspired by a real Bronze Age Yamnaya culture. This part of the story is kind of paraphrase fall of the Roman Empire and migration of nations, in which the Huns had large share and establishment of the barbarian kingdoms of Goths. Although the Huns are a big inspiration for this fantasy history, I am still sliding towards to the Mongol warriors when it comes to design. Because I don't like completely made up fantasy names and often pull them from our history, here's a note on that. The name Tangry that I used for this civilization is derived from the Turkic and Mongolian god of the sky. The oldest form of the name is recorded in the Chinese annals from 4th century BC, describing the beliefs of Xiongnu, which is Huns. Keshik were the imperial guard for Mongol royalty in the Mongol Empire, particularly for the rulers like Genghis Khan. They were divided into groups, the day guard, Torgut, and the night guard, Keftul. They were distincted from the regular army. Famous Subotai was in the Keshik in his early years. So that's all of the new characters and warrior designs for the Empire Fall story. I covered part of the story in the past episode of World Building of Unknown War, so if you're interested you can find all episodes in the playlist. Thanks always for your support and special thanks to my Patreons, Gerard and Simon. I love you all and see you next time.